with the misdemeanor. Now, this People versus Hall case, since it was so recent, and it's currently being appealed to the Michigan Supreme Court. Unfortunately, it wasn't binding authority because it has not become a final decision. But it is incredibly on point and about the most persuasive authority that could be presented here, that Reverend Pinckney should have been charged with a misdemeanor and not a felony. But yet, despite the existence of this case on the books for 2 months before his trial, the prosecutor still insisted that he be charged as a felon. And I think I've run out of time, Webster.
I'm afraid so. I just want one point of information, though, is that these are forms that are printed by the local government jurisdiction. Am I right?
Yes, that's absolutely right.
Okay, so their own form says it can only be a misdemeanor. Thank you so much.
Yes, I want to point out,
Jeffrey
too,
Jackson of Houston.
April 14th at 9 a.m. is the hearing on the juror issue. April 14th.
Welcome back to World Crisis Radio. It's our final segment. Remember, if you're hearing this, if you happen to be in Brooklyn, you can go over to the protest against Whirlpool, the company town that's being held in Brooklyn. Check my Twitter feed for the details. I've given them earlier in the program. Listen to it as it goes around again. Now, it's always interesting to get some slanders. And you know my method is a knock is a boost, as we say on Broadway, or as the Romans said, the ancient Romans, bona fama, mala fama, semper fama. Good fame, bad fame, it's all fame, and we're taking it. If I'm so inconsequential, why bother to attack me? Now, I have to mention that some of the terpiloquium in question comes from Abby Martin. She's interviewed on the website of, I believe, her brother, Robbie Martin. This is called MediaRoots.org. The podcast is called R.I.P. Breaking the Set. I guess it means Requiescat in Pace. And this is an amazing thing because Abby Martin says she approaches the question of the Crimea purely from the point of view of her own ratings and her own gate receipts, I guess we could say, her own reputation. So she says, I was in a real bind on the Crimea, says Abby Martin. If I went along with the Russian action, if I supported the Russian repatriation of the Crimea, then I would be viewed as a stooge of Putin, she says. But if I was against it, then I would be essentially bucking the wishes of the people running this thing. So. She's supposed to be a strong woman, so she says that she had to simply avoid the issue. I'm sorry. If you're given that kind of a podium, you've got to stand up for what is right, for the truth, and for morality, and for war avoidance. Right? These often converge. So this is unacceptable to say, well, you have to sympathize with me because I'm a strong woman here, but at the same time, I can't face these issues on their own merit. And then she gets on to the fact saying she didn't want to be total apologist for Putin, and she was then attacked by a number of individuals, including Webster Tarpley, Paul Craig Roberts, and Lou Rockwell. One wag has pointed to the fact that this podcast, you have to brace yourself because this is a torrent of vile language, obscenity, filth, profanity, scatology, you name it. One wag has said that since Howard Stern is now moving away from his current employers, that there might be an opening there for a female contributor capable of having a really foul mouth. So that seems to be one side of it. We've also got the Fondation Jean Jaurès. This I regret because I think I have tried especially my programs of last June and July. I have tried to do justice to Jean Jaurès, a great European, a great fighter for peace, somebody who tried very hard to prevent World War I from happening. Right, if we had a Caillot Jean Jaurès government in Paris in 1914 instead of this Viviani being run by Poincaré, we might have escaped with fewer disasters in the 20th century. But they now are writing about the question of conspiracy theory. They insist on calling me a conspiracy theorist. I think this is not accurate. If you note what I do, I have a program. I have an organizing perspective. I'm trying to build an organization. I have a strategy, and this is not. This is absolutely not the same as the various paranoid libertarian websites that are so easy to find. Anyway, a research note of the Fondation Jean Jaurès, and of course this was a Socialist Party leader who was assassinated a couple of days before France declared war in World War I. We're told that conspiracy intellectuals are North Americans. Particular mention is made of Webster Tarpley, and then there's a list of others. Along with their European counterparts, they form a kind of international, the Conspiracy International, to which Thierry Meyssan, president of the Voltaire Network, tried to give a concrete form in November 2005 in Brussels, bringing together an anti-imperialist conference, Axis for Peace, which is a who's who of conspiracy authors. Well, again, as a historian, I'm not out to find conspiracies. What I'm trying to do is find out what actually happened. As various historians have said, the task of history is to describe was eigentlich geschah, what actually happened, but wie es eigentlich gewesen ist, what actually happened there, and it's not the question of conspiracy. The problem is when you're dealing with oligarchical social formations, such as the U.S. today, the characteristic method of oligarchical operation is through pre-concert, as Abraham Lincoln called it. Remember that by the measure of these characters from Jean Jaurès, and you can read about this in my book, 9/11 Synthetic Terror Made in USA. Go back to Bernard Bailyn's book on the ideology of the American Revolution, and you will see that the central element is the idea that there was a continuing social effort, conspiracy if you want, that meant that the British oligarchy was determined to wipe out the liberties of the North American colonies. This can be traced back to Edmund Burke, of all people, that a lot of left liberals even and conservatives and all kinds of people would embrace today. But then if you then go back to John Adams, go back to George Washington, go back to any number of others, go back to the Declaration of Independence, and you will see that the Jeffersonian text of the U.S. Declaration of Independence adumbrates what? A conspiracy theory. He has, and when this train of abuses pursued through many governments by different people, when you add that up, you have to conclude that there is a deep institutional commitment. And remember also that Lincoln's House divided speech essentially says, when you see people like Franklin Pierce, when you see people like Stephen Douglas and Roger Taney of the Supreme Court and others, when you see them bring the component parts of a structure together and somehow it all meshes and matches and fits together, well, then you have to conclude pre-concert. Pre-concert is the term used by Lincoln. There's also the question of the Polk, James Knox Polk, and his intrigue to start the Mexican War, right, which is also done at the level of such pre-concert. So I reject this notion of conspiracy theorist. There may be some on their list who do qualify as conspiracy theorists. If you don't have a program, if you don't have an organizing perspective, if you're not doing anything organizationally, well, then maybe that that shoe might fit. But in my case,